Hello, everybody. Welcome. Welcome back to many of you to the Teaching Kitchen here at New York-Presbyterian Hudson Valley Hospital. My name is Chef Emily Berner, and I'm joined today by my colleague, Chef Berner. Have to have a little fun on April Fool's Day, right? How cute is this guy? So welcome, everybody. We are going to be making sneaky fruits and vegetables today. So whether you are just trying to add more plants into your diet, or if you have a young child that's a little bit vegetable averse, I have a niece that's 3 years old, so I'm constantly trying to help my sister get more veggies into her diet. She's pretty good, but it does help to have recipes that can support you in this process. So that's sort of our goal today. Our focus here on April Fools is how you can trick yourself or even some of your loved ones into eating more veggies. So that's always my mission here at the Teaching Kitchen. We're really trying to promote health and wellness. And so, yeah, thank you so much for joining and for watching. Just as a brief reminder, as we get started, keep your microphones on mute throughout the program. And if you have questions, we have our wonderful volunteer, Alita, who has joined us to relay questions to us through the chat box. So you can type in your questions and I will do my best to answer them. And if I don't get to them for whatever reason, certainly feel free to email me after the program and I will answer you then. So thank you, everyone. So why the focus on fruits and veggies? I think most of you have already heard me say this 100 times, but it's still worth repeating that a plant-based diet, which is a diet that's lower in fiber, higher in fiber and lower in fat. Excuse me, I flipped those. Higher in fiber and lower in fat, and it's a diet that really focuses on health, primarily consisting of plants, can potentially lower your risk of developing heart disease. So the Mediterranean diet is sort of one form of this plant-based diet. And today we're going to be using lots of colorful foods to make some really delicious dishes. So one of the things that I love about the plant-based lifestyle is that it really, because it includes a wide variety of different plants, it's really nourishing for your digestive health and your microbiome. So we actually had a class yesterday with Dr. Bakes, and it really got me thinking about, she's a colorectal surgeon with us here at New York-Presbyterian Hudson Valley, and it really got me thinking about the connection between these fibers and our microbiome and our good bacteria in our gut. So there's a really strong link between these two things. Different types of foods offer different types of fibers. So even within the same family, a pinto bean and a black bean have slightly different fibers that feed slightly different bacteria in your gut and help support that beautiful microbiome, that garden in your gut. And I just think that's really cool. So I just wanted to share that. So we're going to be making 3 recipes today: a cauliflower flatbread, a lazy lasagna style zucchini skillet bake thing. I didn't really know what to call this one. And then the third is a pumpkin seed pesto that features arugula and spinach blended right in there with the basil. So it's really flavorful. And you can freeze it and, just pop it on your food, on your fish, on your chicken, or even just with your, toss some noodles in it for a quick veggie fix. So that's going to be our program today. We're going to get started with the cauliflower flatbread. So the oven has been preheated. I steamed the cauliflower ahead of time. So you can see here, I just placed it in a steamer basket and then put that and steamed it for just 10 minutes or so until it got nice and soft. You can see it's kind of breaking apart here. So this is going to be our steamed cauliflower. It does have a lot of moisture, but hopefully the arrowroot that we're using will take care of that. So this is the arrowroot. If you're not familiar with arrowroot, it's a starch and it really helps to kind of absorb moisture. So we're going to be using that in this with almond flour as well. So here's our almond flour. So about 2 cups of that cauliflower steamed out. We're gonna pop that into our food processor. This is more than 2 cups, so I'm not gonna use all of it. You could probably, I haven't tried this, but I'm sure someone's gonna ask me the question. You could probably use frozen riced cauliflower for this as well, instead of, kind of making your own, which is what we're doing here. So I think that would work. You would just have to thaw it out. And maybe frozen cauliflower tends to retain a lot of moisture. So you may need to use more or less arrowroot, kind of depending on that. So let's pulse this a few times. I'm going to pull this forward just so you can see, kind of get that worked down a little bit. And then we're going to add an egg. So we'll crack that right in. This is going to help to bind this flatbread together. We're going to toss in some garlic cloves for flavor. If you wanted to add some herbs to this as well, you could throw in some dried oregano or some dried thyme. Rosemary would be really good too. So feel free to play around with dried herbs and add a little bit in there too if you wanted to flavor it. I know that some kids won't eat stuff if it's green or if it has any green in it. So for that reason, you may not want to put herbs. But I guess since there are no kids around here, I'm going to just grab my little herb mix. So this is a mix of sage, rosemary, and thyme, and we'll sprinkle some of that in there. Why not? Spontaneous decision right now. Everyone's like, that's not in the recipe. So let's add some salt, about a teaspoon of that going in, and we'll just kind of pulse that together. This is going to form our wet mixture. Alita, any questions about that?
No questions yet, Chef Emily.
Okay, fantastic. So let's add our almond flour. We're going to add about 2 cups of almond flour in here. And almonds, of course, we know almonds are really high in fiber. They also contain protein, wonderful source of monounsaturated fats, which are the good ones. What else do we love about almonds? Antioxidants, which help to protect against oxidative stress, which we all experience, whether or not we know it. And may help assist with blood sugar control because of all the fiber and protein that's in there. So let's pulse that a few times. And now we're going to add our arrowroot. So it says in your recipe booklets, 1/2 cup to 1 cup of arrowroot. It really depends on how wet your cauliflower is. So you kind of have to go by feel. So I'm going to start with the 1/2 cup. And then I'll show you the texture that I'm looking for. Oh, and I have to remember my olive oil is going in here too. About 2 tablespoons of olive oil. You just want to kind of pulse it together until it forms a dough. So it's still looking a bit wet. So I may need to add some more arrowroot. So you just want it to kind of get into that dough texture. It's almost there. Let me grab my little scraper. Spatula, just kind of encourage everything down the sides. So you can see it's kind of got this texture here. It's still a little wet, so we want to keep going a little bit with more arrowroot. So again, I put 1/2 cup. We'll do another 1/2 cup and see if that helps. So I guess my cauliflower, after it steamed, it stayed pretty wet. Okay, this is looking better. All right. And Alita, I noticed that that there was a question that popped up in the chat box there.
Actually, 2 questions. So
Okay.
He wants to know, what does arrowroot taste like?
So arrowroot's basically flavorless. It's a lot. It's pretty much the same as cornstarch, but it comes from a different plant. So arrowroot, it's a starch. It doesn't really taste like anything, and it can be substituted, often is substituted with cornstarch because that's less expensive. So feel free to make that substitution if you would like. I kind of prefer arrowroot only because a lot of cornstarch is genetically modified. And since the jury's kind of still out on whether or not genetically modified foods are okay for us, arrowroot's a good choice, in the meantime. So we're just going to, yeah, go ahead.
I'm sorry, a follow-up to that is, where can we buy arrowroot and is it expensive?
Yeah, so it can be pricey. I think this bag of arrowroot probably costs somewhere between $3 to $5. I can't recall, but it's in that price range usually. And you can find it This one I bought over at ShopRite. So you can find it easily kind of everywhere now. It used to be that you couldn't really, there was just cornstarch, but I think the demand with gluten-free baking, especially, the demand for arrowroot has really gone up. So yeah, you can now find it more readily available.
And
Any
so
other questions?
can you replace regular flour with almond flour on any recipe?
Great question. So no, you can't, because sometimes the regular flour actually serves a purpose. It's I don't know why I brought this this rolling pin out. I guess I just thought flatbread. I went automatically to the rolling pin. So no, you can't make that substitution for everything. You can start, it really depends on what you're making. Like if you're making a pancake or a waffle or something like that, it's pretty easy to start substituting almond flour in that case. Or even like a quick bread, like a banana bread or a zucchini bread, you can start to play around with almond flour for those applications. But in recipes where you really are relying on the flour for structure, right? Because flour has gluten in it and almond flour does not. In the case like that, you would want to use the regular flour. I hope that made sense. All right. So I'm just spreading this out. I have a parchment lined sheet pan here. I put a little bit of olive oil on the bottom. We'll do a little drizzle of olive oil on top. It's almost like the consistency of like a cake batter, almost. So I'm just kind of spreading this out until it's about 1/4 of an inch thick. Pushing it out from the center, out to the sides. It doesn't have to fill the whole pan. It's fine if it's just kind of a free-form creature. All right, I'm gonna run some water into this food processor because we're gonna use it again for our pesto. And we'll just drizzle some olive oil on top of that. And this is gonna go into my preheated oven. This is the first recipe. I don't know if you guys can see, the light is kind of there we go. There it is. All right. So in it goes. Any other questions? I know that happened pretty fast, right? These recipes are pretty quick.
There was a question for Christine about your parchment paper being pre-cut.
Yeah, such a luxury, Christine. So I actually buy, because this is a commercial kitchen, I buy like the commercial kitchen pre-cut parchment paper stuff. You can find that though on Amazon. You can get like 1,000 sheets. I think it's like $40 or $50. It is expensive, but it will last you a long, long time. So definitely, I think it's worth investing in your home kitchen. It just makes things a lot easier, especially if you use your oven a lot, like we do here. You want to make it easy on yourself. It's always a struggle when you're kind of fighting with the parchment paper.
And there's a follow-up question on the parchment paper having any of those, I think it's PFAOs, the chemicals.
So this parchment paper, it's a white paper, so I don't know if it's been bleached or anything like that, if it has any trace amounts. So I don't know. That's a really good question. I'm not too sure. I'm gonna have to look into that. I don't know if it says it on the box, but really good question. I'm gonna look into that.
And then there's an additional question. Will this store in the freezer or refrigerator well, or does it need to be made fresh daily?
No, you could freeze this. You could slice this up. Sorry, I feel like I have a sneeze coming on. You could definitely slice this up and freeze it in, like, you'd want to freeze it in pieces so that you could just kind of pop it into the toaster oven when you want to use it. Or if you don't have a toaster oven, you could, preheat your oven and heat it up again that way.
So an additional question is, can you use whole wheat flour in place of the almond flour?
I don't know. I don't know because I haven't tried this recipe with whole wheat flour. I think it probably could work, but again, it's totally different when you work with almond flour and whole wheat flour because the whole wheat flour has that gluten in it. So, you know, you could start going like 50-50. Try a little bit of whole wheat flour and a little bit of the almond flour and see how it reacts. Clearly, I have some more experimentation to do with this flatbread recipe. These are really good questions. I'm excited to play around with this.
Mm-hmm. And then Patricia commented that Ocean State, I'm thinking it's a store in Mailpack, sometimes sells the pre-cut parchment paper, 24 of them.
Oh, awesome.
For $1.99.
Oh, good. So you don't need to buy 1,000 sheets.
Yeah,
I mean, I keep it in here. This is a pretty big, heavy box. So yeah, 1,000 sheets in that one. Yeah. Yeah, great. Thank you, everybody. And thank you for supporting each other and answering each other's questions. It's always helpful, you know, to hear from all of you as well. So as I get ready for our second recipe here, which is the lazy lasagna style zucchini skillet dish, I'm wondering from all of you, what are some of the ways in which you sneak veggies into your meals where otherwise, you know, someone might not know that there are veggies in there. So if you guys want to share something in the chat about a recipe that you have and that you make, and someone goes, oh my gosh, there's sweet potatoes in this or black beans in this, I had no idea. You know, that's kind of, I'd love to hear from all of you as well. So we're getting our skillet nice and warm here, and we're going to use some Italian sausages. These are not cooked, so I'm actually going to throw some gloves on because it's going to be working with raw chicken. And what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to draw the meat out of the casings. So the reason I'm doing this is because I don't want the sausage shape. You could, you know, cook them up, but it takes a little bit longer. So I'm just going to squeeze the meat out of the casings. And this way I'm going to use that flavored ground chicken. So this is kind of like a quick and easy recipe. And we're going to use that ground chicken as our, in our dish. So if you wanted to make this vegetarian, you certainly could leave the ground meat out of it. You would just, you know, you would just proceed without it, or you could add a substitution. You could use a box grater, like the large holes of your box grater, and you could grate tempeh if you are familiar with tempeh. It's a soy-based protein. So you could grate some tempeh and use that instead of your ground meat, and that'll add some nice protein to your dish if you wanted to try that. I'm trying to think what else you could probably do. Other than the tempeh, I mean, there's a lot of other, you know, kind of meat substitutions out there. I tend to stay away from them just because they are often extremely high in sodium. But if you have one that you like the Beyond sausage or something like that, and you just wanted to cut that up, you could do that too. So another question, Alita?
Yes, there is. So it says, what oil do you use?
Oh, sorry. Yeah. So I just added a little bit of olive oil, just regular olive oil. Not too high of a heat here. We're just kind of sauteing, getting this, you know, to kind of cook down. It's going to be very sticky. So you just kind of have to keep poking at it with your spoon, and eventually it'll start to take on some heat, and that'll make it a lot easier to work with. You could even use tongs as well. If you have tongs, it kind of helps to break things up and move things around. Yes, Alita.
Yeah, and then there's a comment from Sharmonica. I hope I'm saying that properly. She said that she made black bean brownies.
Oh, awesome. Yeah.
And she says
that's a good one.
Oh, she has an ice cream maker and has made mint ice cream using avocados as one of the ingredients. And since it's mint ice cream, the kids don't question why it's green. And she also added a few chocolate chips to it. So that sounds delicious.
That sounds really good. Thank you, Shamanika, for sharing that. You're actually reminding me of a chocolate mousse that I make that's like more like a pudding texture, but it's just made with avocados and cocoa powder and maple syrup. So the avocados turn completely dark from the cocoa powder, and yeah, you can definitely fool a few friends with that one. Anything else coming through? These are great.
There's a question about, can you taste these hidden ingredients? I don't know if she's talking about Sharmonica's or if she's talking about yours, but.
Yeah, I mean, I think at least for the black bean brownies, Sharmonica, I've made those as well. And you don't really taste the black bean because the cocoa is such a strong flavor. It kind of matches the black bean. At least that's been my experience with black bean brownies. Yeah, really cool. I don't know about the avocado and the ice cream though. I have to try that one. I haven't made that yet. All right, I'm just gonna bring the heat up just a little bit. So you just wanna make sure that your sausage is really, is cooking well. You just kind of pull it apart. And then we're gonna add a couple other things in here. It's gonna get some tomato paste. So about 3 tablespoons of tomato paste. And we're also gonna throw in some garlic, some red pepper flakes. To really make it, you know, all the wonderful Italian seasonings kind of in one dish. So this is getting a little bit easier to work with as it's kind of congealing. You just kind of keep breaking it apart, keep working it. Any other comments on sneaky fruits and vegetables in our audience today?
That's it for now.
Okay, cool. Another great way, obviously, this is perhaps a little obvious, is smoothies. I think that's one of the reasons I didn't make the smoothie today, because it's kind of like, I think everybody now puts spinach in their smoothies, whether or not, you know, it's a trend. It's definitely happening. So I also know, I tried this once myself and I didn't love it, but you can take frozen cauliflower and put that in your smoothie kind of as a filler, like it adds a lot of bulk to the smoothie. I didn't love the taste of that one, but some people, you know, really enjoy that and don't seem to mind it. So it could be something to experiment with. Spinach, of course, kale, you could throw into a smoothie, and then you've got all of your berries. So there's a lot of things you can add into smoothies to hide in some veggies. You could throw in cooked beets. If you wanted to do like a pink smoothie, right, with strawberries and raspberries, and then you could steam some beets. I think kids wouldn't really question that either, right? Because it's supposed to be pink, because they're berries. So you can play around with that. So there's a lot of fun things you can do with smoothies. All right, so this meat is looking good now. I'm gonna add in the tomato paste. I'm gonna toss in some garlic and red pepper flakes. I'll show you how I did that too. And kind of move that all around. Then we're going to toss in some tomato sauce, about 2 cups of marinara. You just want to make sure the tomato paste kind of gets broken up and moved around. All right. Maybe this isn't as lazy as I thought. I'm working over here. This is more work than I remembered. It's not so lazy. I guess you don't have the, you know, the process with the lasagna of like layering in the noodles and all that stuff. It takes forever. But yeah. All right, let's add our 2 cups of marinara. And I'm just going to show you how I worked with that garlic clove. So this is in the paper. So I pressed with my knife to squish, or you could use, you know, flat bottom of a jar, give it a good smash, pop the peel off that way, get rid of that papery part, and then just trim the bottom. Many of you have seen me do this before. Make sure with your holding hand, you're tucking your fingers, and you just cut, you know, cut right across, nice and small. If you're afraid with your hand here, you can always place it on top and just work, you know, work a little mince in. All right, so you can do it that way too. If the garlic's a little small, hard to work with, feel free to try that mincing motion instead. All right, so we got our sauce, we've got our garlic, we've got our red pepper flakes. This is really smelling good. And I'm just going to add our next ingredient here. The one thing that I did ahead of time is I used my zoodle machine to work these zucchini noodles down, and I sprinkled them with a little salt, and you can see, maybe you can't see, but they're dripping because the salt helps to draw moisture out of the zucchini noodles, out of the zucchini. So you can see it's soft. Now they're a lot softer, right? If you don't have a zoodle machine, I'm going to show you how to work with that too. So you just want to grab your paper towel and kind of press them down a little bit to help exude some of that moisture, right? And just gently kind of press them. You don't want to press them too much. And then these are going to go into the skillet. We're going to cover that for about 2 minutes, let them cook down a little bit, and then we're going to throw some spinach in here too. So you're getting both the zucchini and the spinach in this dish. Alita, I'll just check in with you quickly here.
Yes. So just to note that Ocean State job lot also has round and rectangular paper. I did put the address on the chat since you know.
Thank you.
Interest. Lillian said that she used beets in chocolate cake.
Yeah. Oh, I love that, Lillian. Yeah, that's a great idea.
And then Naomi says that she hasn't made it yet, but she often gets cauliflower crust pizza.
Nice. Yeah. So this flatbread actually can kind of be used the same way as a cauliflower crust. You would bake it, and then you could put your sauce and your toppings on it, and then bake it again. So we kind of making a cauliflower crust right now, but we're serving it as a flatbread with pesto. So yeah, cauliflower crust like exploded. It didn't even exist a few years ago, but it totally exploded. So, so I just want to show you, if you don't have a zoodle machine, first of all, they're a lot of fun, so you might want to consider, especially if you want to make, make kind of veggie noodles, which is what we're doing today. Or you could just good old-fashioned peeler and get your zucchini and just peel to make these nice thin ribbons. This works just as well. So I like to peel until I kind of get down to the seeds, and then I turn. So I peel until I get down to the seeds, and then I turn. I tend to discard the seeds, but you don't have to if you want to use every last bit. So feel free either way. The reason for discarding the seeds, they tend to contain a lot of moisture and, kind of add a fibrous texture that some kids don't really dig. So it's more of a texture thing. Sometimes if you're working with picky eaters, they don't like the little seedy textures, and the zucchini noodles are nice and smooth otherwise. So here we go. We made our own little, all right, so that's pretty quick. Just a note on the recipe, it does say 5 zucchini. I used 4 today because mine were pretty big. So I would say 5 small zucchini, 4 medium, or sometimes you get these really big ones, so 3 large. Keep in mind that they will kind of disintegrate, or disintegrate's a little strong of a word, but they will wilt a little bit when you add salt to them, and so that moisture gets pressed out. So so just keep that in mind as well. All right, questions?
There's a question regarding the differences between whole wheat flour and whole wheat pastry flour.
Oh, good questions. Okay. Oh, whole wheat flour versus whole wheat pastry flour. Okay. Once upon a time, there was a field of wheat. And in that field of wheat, there's different varieties of wheat. Basically, it's the difference between a red apple, a green apple, a yellow apple. Similarly, there are many different varieties of wheat, and whole wheat flour can be either like a winter wheat or a spring wheat. So the winter wheat has to endure the winter. So it's really tough, it's really hardy, it's full of gluten, which is the protein in flour, right? It's full of gluten because it needs to be really strong, full of protein to endure that winter. Spring wheat, temperatures are milder, it's definitely a lot easier for that wheat to grow because it doesn't have to push through cold winter seasons. So the gluten content in the spring wheat is quite less. And as a result, it yields a much more tender kind of result when you're baking. So a whole wheat pastry flour is derived of that spring wheat. So it doesn't contain as much gluten, meaning that it's better for pastries. Because in pastries, you don't want a lot of that gluten protein, because otherwise you're going to end up with muffins that are tough and zucchini breads that's tough. I don't know why I have zucchini bread on the mind today. It's the second time I mention it. I guess it's the zucchinis. But I hope that makes sense to everybody. So the pastry flour is better for pastry because of the variety of wheat that it comes from. That's the basic point of it. Make sense to everybody?
Yes.
Check on her. Good. Okay.
About keeping the skin on the zucchinis?
Yeah, I keep the skins on. Yeah. So Again, if you are working with a picky eater that is, oh my gosh, that's green, I don't want to eat that, definitely you can peel your zucchini and just work with the flesh of the zucchini and take the peel off. But the peel is completely edible and it's really tasty. So I leave that up to you in your kitchen and your audience that you're working with. So certainly there's options. Yeah. Another question? I think I saw another one pop up.
No, not another question, but it was
right.
I guess the flour differences was a great explanation, people say.
Okay, good. Yeah, excellent. So I've got my zucchini in here. It's cooking down a little bit. It's still nice because it still has its shape. It's not, completely mush. And now we're going to throw our spinach right on there. So we've got our spinach leaves, pop those on top. And we're just going to cover that again to kind of wilt those spinach leaves. All right. Then we'll toss it all together, add some cheese, into the oven it goes. And that'll be that for that recipe. A brief note on zucchini. So zucchini is actually in the same family as melons, spaghetti squash, and cucumbers. The variety that we most use here today was actually first developed in 1800s, early 1800s in Italy. So it came from Italy. It's very low calorie. 1 cup of zucchini contains 17 calories. So just think about that for a second. If you're eating a whole zucchini, probably about 2 to 3 cups in there, it's only about 40 calories. So it's very low calorie. It contains a variety of vitamins and minerals, of course. It's particularly high in vitamin A, and that is actually increased with cooking. So vitamin A is one of the vitamins that sometimes when you cook vitamins, they are decreased with cooking. Vitamin A increases when you cook them. So that's a good reason to cook your zucchini. Both soluble and insoluble fibers are found in zucchini. So both help to keep you full, help to move things along, and it provides a great low-carb alternative to pasta, as we're doing today. So and botanically speaking, I know I call this a sneaky fruits and vegetables class. Botanically speaking, zucchini is a fruit, and so is tomato. So I feel like I'm honoring the title of our class. As I was preparing for this class, I was like, gosh, there's no kind of regular run-of-the-mill fruits in this, but botanically speaking, so we honored the name of the class. Tomato contains a lot of lycopene, which is a wonderful heart-healthy antioxidant. So a lot of great stuff in here for you. Any questions before we add our cheese and into the oven it goes?
Yes, one question, Chef Emily. Which other vitamins and minerals are increased when cooked?
That's a really good question. So I know vitamin A, vitamin C is decreased when cooked. And what's the other vitamin mineral that's increased when cooked? I'm going to have to look into that a little bit more and get back to you. It's not coming to the top of my brain right now. Good question. Let me actually write that down. See if I can find a pen and send you guys a little blurb after the class. Anything else? All good?
All good.
Okay, fantastic. So let's get this into the oven. I don't want to grab my knife. Wrong tool. This is the one you want. You're not going to do a lot of stirring with your knife. I don't know if it's because it's April Fool's, but I feel especially silly today. I don't know about all of you. All right. Oh my gosh, this looks really good. So we're going to put about half of the shredded mozzarella in there and toss it in. And then we'll put some more on top. So you just kind of want to fold some of that in there. Okay, perfect. And then we're going to put this into the oven and bake it just 10-15 minutes or so. Everything's cooked technically, but it's nice. It's nice kind of finished off in the oven. It helps to kind of evaporate out some of that extra liquid from the tomato sauce. I have some fresh ricotta cheese. We'll pop that on top as well. A few spoonfuls here and there. This is completely optional. Obviously, if you wanted to make this vegan, you just leave out the cheese or put your own non-dairy cheese version. And if you wanted to, and then, obviously substitute out the chicken for your vegan protein. So there's a lot of ways to kind of play with this recipe so that you can customize it and make it your own. All right, these are gonna turn off. I'm just gonna bring this up close. You guys can see it before it goes in. And we'll pop it in the oven. Okay, and it goes. So our final recipe is the pesto, and I love making pestos. It's a great way to add veggies and it just tastes so good on pretty much anything. You know, you could throw it over raw zucchini. The raw zucchini that I sliced up just then, toss that in some pesto and have that sort of as a raw zucchini salad. It's really good. This again, we're going to use the food processor. And everything just goes right in. So we're using, instead of pine nuts, we're going to be using pepitas. These are unsalted, roasted pepitas. And I tasted one out of the bag and they just didn't taste quite toasted enough for my liking. So I put them into a pan, nothing in the pan, just a pan on some heat, and added a little bit of heat and waited until they started to pop and dance a little bit. And there you go. Here are your roasted pepitas. So they're slightly browned. As soon as they start to pop, you can just turn the pan off and let them sit. So let's get those in there. Okay. We're going to add some garlic. You can start with 1 clove. And then, if you wanted to then add a second one, kind of taste it and see. Sometimes garlic can be really, really potent. So I'll leave that up to you to kind of taste and see. Chop that up. And we're going to add our arugula and spinach. So here are the greens. Kind of work that down a little bit. Let's add some olive oil, about a 1/4 cup. You want to use a nice, good, good flavored one, extra virgin olive oil. And let's add our shredded Parmigiano Reggiano, Parmesan cheese. You could also use pecorino if you wanted, or do half and half. That's it, you're done. You could add a little splash of water. I do have a cold water here. And let's not forget, one of the most important ingredients is basil. I do like to add the basil at the end. I don't know why. I feel like I learned that somewhere along the way and just seemed to work well. So here's our basil. You just want to pick it off the stems, right? Try not to get too much stem in there. Okay, I may need a little more olive oil. It's looking just a bit dry. Let's add the rest of our water first. Just a little bit. 1, 2, 3, 4. That looks good. Okay, perfect. And that's it. Beautiful. Oh my gosh, it smells so good. Bright green pesto with tons of arugula, spinach in there too. So feel free to use, I like the arugula. I think it gives it a nice peppery taste. And if you want to use a mix of nuts and seeds too, you can use, we're using the pepitas today, but if you wanted to, feel free to substitute with some walnuts. Almonds are good too. Pine nuts, of course, very tasty and very traditional when you're making pesto, but also a bit pricey. So, you can kind of do half and half. So up to you. But yum. So at this point, you can freeze this. You can enjoy it fresh, kind of however you like. So we have about 5 minutes left. I just want to check in with our audience. How's everybody doing?
They're doing well. So there's one more question about the toasting of could you toast almonds and other nuts and seeds using your method?
Oh yeah, absolutely. So it's called dry, it's not my method. I learned it in culinary school. It's just called dry toasting. So, you just you just put your pan on the heat and you don't want to walk away and go do something else because they will go quickly from being completely unroasted to burnt. So stay close by, do something nearby, stir them on occasion, keep them on a medium flame. You'll really start to smell that nutty aroma coming out. And the heat gently coaxes out. Nuts and seeds already have a lot of oils in them, right? We think about, walnut oil, almond oil, sesame seed oil. They have a lot of oils in them naturally. So the heat kind of brings that oil out from the nut or the seed and coats it in that oil. That's why you don't really need to add any oil when you're toasting your nuts and seeds. If the heat is too high, they will burn. If the heat is too low, it's gonna take too long. So you kind of want to balance that heat. Any other questions? And then a brief note on, okay, perfect. And then a brief note on the pumpkin seeds. So pumpkin seeds are, if you bring out your jack-o'-lantern, you've got that white seed. The pepitas are the green, flat, oval seeds in those seeds. So after they've been shelled. So they're very rich in antioxidants. They contain iron, a lot of zinc in these little pepitas, which is really great for us too, especially for healing. Magnesium, very high in magnesium, which most of us are deficient in magnesium. So it's a good thing to try and include it for that reason. And then of course, nuts and seeds are anti-inflammatory. And the magnesium in particular is really important for blood pressure. So it could be a good thing to include. And then as with all nuts and seeds, because of their protein and fiber content, helps to stabilize that blood sugar over time. Okay, let's check in on our flatbread here. Looks really good. So this is looking nice and browned, and beautiful. It smells really good. It's a little hot, but you can see, I'll show you in a moment here. Maybe it cools down for a second. You can kind of see how it, do want to show you this before we leave, because you can pick it up, just like a pizza crust. You really can pick up and hold this flatbread, right? So it looks like bread, it tears like bread, smells like bread, and it's not bread, it's cauliflower and almonds. So a great recipe to give this a shot. All right, any final questions before we wrap up? And I'm gonna pull this out of the oven to show you the final results on this too.
Chef Emily, there's a question on how they can remove the brown skin on the shell on the almonds.
Oh, okay. So if you want to, if you want to peel your almonds, good luck. Are we talking about almonds in the shell itself, like before we enjoy them as almonds, like cracking the almonds and everything?
I think it's a brown skin on the shelled almonds. So it's just the brown skin.
Okay, so when you just, a regular almond that you'd find in the grocery store, right? Mm-hmm. So if you want to peel your almonds, it does take some time, but you can pop them in some boiling water. Take your almonds and pop them in some boiling water for a few minutes, then drain them, let them cool down, and kind of slip the skins off. You can do it that way. You can also soak your almonds overnight. So sometimes people don't want to destroy anything in the almond by putting it in the hot water. So you can put your almonds in a bowl of cold water, let it soak overnight, and then the next morning you can just peel, kind of rub those skins off. So that's how I peel almonds. Not that it happens very often, but when I do have to, that's how I do it.
And then there was a question about where did you get your olive oil container?
Oh gosh, you can get these at any little restaurant supply store kind of thing. They're just called squeeze bottles. Yeah, you can find that they're very inexpensive. So I keep most of my olive oil, I keep it in a cool, dark place. And then what I need for the week, I just pull up out of that cool, dark place, because olive oil does break down when exposed to light and heat. So over time, if you just have your olive oil out for months and months, it will break down. So you want to keep it in a cool, dark place and then just pull out what you need for the week. I think, any restaurant supply store, and I'm sure our audience could probably contribute some sources as well.
The dollar store, someone said. So
the dollar store, yeah.
Someone, Lillian wanted to know, what about roasting the almonds and then rubbing the skins with a kitchen towel?
So Lillian, that works really well for hazelnuts, actually. If you wanted to peel hazelnuts, that works beautifully. I have not tried it with almonds, so I'm not sure. I suppose you would get some of the skin off, but I'm not too sure. Okay, so I'm just gonna do a little chiffonade. I have some basil leaves here. Gonna roll them up into a little package and just slice across. Whenever you're working with basil, keep it dry. You don't want to work with basil that's wet because it will brown and it will just not look as beautiful as it deserves to look. So there it is, our beautiful chiffonade. Work with a sharp knife when you're doing a chiffonade, right? A very sharp knife, so you just don't bruise the basil and you just slice right through it. All right, everybody, that is our class. I'm just gonna pull out our lazy skillet. Oh gosh, it smells so good. All right, there it is, bubbling beautiful. And we'll top that with a little bit of our chiffonade basil on top. So just remember how many veggies we are sneaking in here. We've got our arugula, we've got our basil, we've got our zucchini, we've got our cauliflower, we've got our spinach. There's a lot of good stuff happening up here. So thank you everybody for watching. Thank you for tuning in to our class. Please come back for more programs. We have, I think, 2 classes next week. One is our seasonal seasonal one dish class, and the other is with one of our physicians, Dr. Abati, who is a sleep medicine doctor. So if you've been suffering from a little corona insomnia or any kind of sleep related issues, he's wonderful. So that's a really good class to tune into. And thank you so much, Alita, for being our moderator today. Enjoy your vegetables, everybody. Get your veggies in. Happy April Fools, happy April, happy spring, and hope to see you again